Welcome everyone. This is the account with today's news report for day 322 of the war in Ukraine. We do not have any major events to report on individually, so again, today we have the regular news segment consisting of the situation inside Ukraine, the occupied territories, Russia and Belarus, and the international developments. I do have one article I want to point out though. But as usual, first we take a look at the flashpoints along the front. Soledar. Russia has repeatedly claimed they fully control the settlement. Ukraine reports fierce fighting is ongoing. The settlement most likely continues to be contested, however, Russia probably controls most of Soledar. While both sides are suffering huge losses in the battle for control, Russia's losses are said to be extremely colossal. Videos shared on social media support that claim. As of today, 11:48 a.m. Kyiv time, the Russian Ministry of Defense said on their Telegram channel that airborne troops have blocked Soledar from the northern and southern part of the city. The Russian Air Force is carrying out strikes, and assault units are fighting in the city. Therefore, the Ministry of Defense is denying the claims of Yevgeny Prigozhin that Soledar has been fully captured by Wagner alone. Furthermore, Russian sources say Wagner is trading convicts for professional soldiers, so Ukraine is worse off. However, we know from the Ministry of Defense statement that this is also not true. Russia is losing professional soldiers as well. In the evening, Yevgeny Prigozhin once again claimed the capture of Soledar, hinting at a clear division in the Russian military between Wagner and the Ministry of Defense. President Zelensky, during his daily video address, denied the Russian claim that Soledar was captured and explained why he believes Russia is lying about it. They need support for the mobilization and to give hope to the Russians. Furthermore, we have statements from different Ukrainian sources also reporting that the fight for Soledar continues. Bakhmut. Despite everything, Russia continues to throw soldiers at Bakhmut. Battles are reported in the eastern outskirts and in Klishchivka, south of the city. And before we start the regular report, here's the article I wanted to point out, titled Salt of the Earth, Deep Inside Eastern Ukraine's Massive Soledar Mines. Soledar and its salt mines. According to scientists, less than 5% of the salt deposit has been mined since operations began in 1881. The capture would be a symbolic, military and commercial victory for Russia. Partially published in 2019 already, the article is revisiting photos taken during more peaceful times. They reflect just how massive the tunnels under the area are. Please check it out. And now for our news segment, starting with the situation inside Ukraine. President Zelensky has visited the town of Lviv. His first order of business was honoring the memory of fallen Ukrainian soldiers before he held a meeting discussing the situation on the border with Belarus and the security situation in the northwestern oblasts of Ukraine. One particular concern is the protection and continued function of the Rivne nuclear power plant. Russian forces shelled the Kherson Regional Children's Clinical Hospital once again. Due to the attack, a fire broke out in the maternity ward and windows were shattered. Luckily, no one was injured. According to the European Commission Vice President Franz Timmermans, Ukraine cannot become a member of the EU while Russian troops are on its territory. Additionally, the European Union has set 7 conditions for Ukraine's membership. And now for the latest out of the occupied territories. Russia has begun to build a new airbase at an abandoned airfield near Berdiansk. Being 85 kilometers behind the front, this would put the airfield outside Ukrainian strike range. After the liberation of Kherson, Russia had to abandon one of their main airfields located at Chaplinka because it was within HIMARS range. Moving on to the updates from Russia and Belarus. For 2022, the Russian government has reported a 47 billion budget deficit. This is Russia's second highest deficit in the post-Soviet era. While no details were published, experts assume it can be attributed to increased military spending. According to the main Directorate of Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, the Federal Security Service of Russia has banned conscripts from leaving the country starting on January 9th. A relevant decree of the FSB has been sent to all border departments of Russia. The ban also includes those with limited fitness for service. Russian President Vladimir Putin has claimed the sanctions imposed on Russia after the invasion of Ukraine had little effect. He boasted that this is thanks to the citizens of Russia, their unity, and the government's work. However, he also complained that no new aircrafts have been ordered and the factories are standing still. After sanctions were imposed, over 1,000 foreign companies left the country, while Russians lost up to a quarter of their imports and production in technological industries dropped by 80%. General Sergei Surovikin has been removed from his position as commander of the Russian armed forces 3 months after he was appointed. He was replaced by Valery Gerasimov, the chief of the General Staff of the Russian Federation, with Surovikin becoming his deputy. Analysts suggest that Surovikin has become too powerful and most likely bypassed Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and Chief of the General Staff Valery Gerasimov when talking to Putin. It seems Belarus has created its own government-backed private military company similar to Russia's Wagner Group. Guard Service, as the PMC is called, has significantly increased the number of employees to 1,000 and is preparing to participate in military operations. And to wrap up the news segment, the international developments. Ben Hodges, a former commander of the US Army in Europe, called on Ukraine's allies to be more decisive and provide Ukraine with much-needed offensive weapons. He also said he believes Ukraine will liberate Crimea by the end of August. Italy has announced it will be sending more weapons to Ukraine. As stated by Italy's Foreign Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Antonio Tajani, a new aid package for Ukraine is being prepared. On the other hand, Spain has complained about Switzerland blocking the supply of some types of weapons from being delivered. Spain requires permission from Switzerland, who is the manufacturer of said weapons, before they can be sent to Ukraine. Andrzej Duda, the president of Poland, has said his country is ready to hand over Leopard tanks to Ukraine within the framework of an international coalition. He further noted that the decision has already been made. Duda said Ukraine would receive a Leopard company and other tanks from their allies very soon. The leader of the Social Democratic Party of Germany, Lars Klingbeil, has criticized French President Emmanuel Macron for his action in supplying battle tanks to Ukraine. The signal to Ukraine, and especially to Russia, would certainly have been even stronger if Germany, France, and the USA had announced their decision on this matter at the same time. Meanwhile, the government of the United Kingdom has confirmed plans to send tanks to Ukraine. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has asked Defense Secretary Ben Wallace to work with partners on support, including tanks. And now for our intelligence update segment, starting with the UK Ministry of Defense. On January 8, 2023, the Belarusian Ministry of Defense announced a joint Russian-Belarusian tactical flight exercise to be held in the country from January 16th to February 1st, 2023. As of January 8, 2023, amateur aircraft spotters noted the arrival of a total of 12 Mi-8 support helicopters and Mi-24 and Ka-52 attack helicopters. With some appearing with Z markings, the aircraft landed at Machulishchi Air Base near Minsk. The new deployment of Russian aircraft to Belarus is likely a genuine exercise rather than a preparation for any additional offensive operations against Ukraine. Although Russia maintains a large number of forces in Belarus, they are most likely involved in training. They are unlikely to constitute a credible offensive force. During the finishing of the report, the UK Ministry of Defense released another update for today. On January 11, 2023, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu announced that the head of the Russian military, Chief of the General Staff, CGS, Valery Gerasimov, is to take over as commander of the special military operation in Ukraine. Gerasimov is to have 3 deputies in the role, including the previous incumbent, General Sergei Surovikin. This is a significant development in Russian President Vladimir Putin's approach to managing the war. The deployment of the CGS as theater commander is an indicator of the increasing seriousness of the situation Russia is facing and a clear acknowledgement that the campaign is falling short of Russia's strategic goals. The move is likely to be greeted with extreme displeasure by much of the Russian ultra-nationalist and military blogger community, who have increasingly blamed Gerasimov for the poor execution of the war. In contrast, Surovikin has been widely praised by this community for his championing of a more realistic approach. As a now deputy commander, his authority and influence is almost certainly hugely reduced. Moving on to the latest assessment by the Institute for the Study of War. The Institute for the Study of War points out that Russia has not captured the entire settlement of Soledar, despite numerous Russian claims how the city has fallen and Bakhmut will be encircled imminently. While this would be a rare victory for Russia after a series of defeats, even Yevgeny Prigozhin, head of the Wagner PMC, reported ongoing fighting and resistance. Analysts from the Institute have seen visual confirmation of the presence of Wagner units in the city center, but the situation of control over Soledar and its quarters is unclear due to dynamic fighting, the report said. At the same time, even the possible capture of Soledar will not mean the immediate encirclement of Bakhmut. According to the researchers, control over Soledar will not necessarily allow the Russians to establish control over the most important supply lines for Ukrainian troops. And finally, the evening report by the General Staff of Ukraine. The main efforts of the enemy are concentrated on attempts to completely seize the Donetsk Oblast. The enemy is conducting offensive operations in the Bakhmut direction. The enemy is trying to take control of the city of Soledar and the supply routes of our units. The enemy suffers heavy losses. The fighting continues. The occupiers are conducting unsuccessful offensive actions in the Avdiivka direction. The enemy is trying to improve its tactical position in the Kupiansk and Novopavlovsk direction, and in the Liman, Zaporizhia, and Kherson areas, the enemy is defending. In the settlements of the temporarily occupied territory of the Kherson region, the Russian invaders are intensifying regime measures, checking the local population. Special attention is paid to mobile phones. The trend of overcrowding of medical facilities in temporarily occupied settlements with wounded Russian occupiers is intensifying. As of January 9th, 100 additional beds were deployed in the Makivka local hospital of the Luhansk region only. According to available information, the border service of the FSB of the Russian Federation has implemented an order on January 9th of this year to ensure restrictions on the departure of citizens who are fit for military service. And that's it for today's news report. If you're interested in any of the articles I mentioned, as usual, you can find the links in the description. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day. You were listening to The Account. Slava Ukraini.